What is up, guys? Slaughter here, and today I'm going to be giving you some generic tips on some loadout stuff. But first, here's what I'm using. I'm using the Hungry Hamster here. It is a charge rifle. Pretty good, has high base damage, and if you get a headshot, it's pretty much an instant kill. But you want to charge it pretty much all the way whenever you're going to shoot somebody. You'll notice here that the hip and aim accuracy is 100%, so you really don't even need to aim down sight with it. You'll notice in the gameplay that I really don't. It's a lot better that way, and you just want to get used to it. You'll notice the next gun I'm using here is Tim Peslow's gun. I named this after him, the guy who made it and originally taught me how to use it. Nearly every match I play, people ask me about this gun and how to make it. The main thing to note about it is that it's pulse Tesla snipe, and it's actually pretty good, but you want to get a lot of practice with it because it's not that easy to use and it has a learning curve to it. Very quickly, I'll go into the testing and show you guys some generic things about this gun. The first thing to note about this gun is even if you miss because it's Tesla, you will actually do a little bit of damage. And because it's a bolt action sniper, it can get one-shot headshots, and it'll even go through shields if they have that equipped because it's Tesla. A final thing to note is that the base damage on body shots is actually still pretty good, so it's usually a 2-shot kill if you hit the body. Needless to say, it's a great gun and one of my favorites. And finally, here's an overall view of my loadout so that you can see I'm using the disguise. Whew, alright, finally, now that all that's out of the way, I can finally show you the gameplay. Nope, guess again, there's one last thing I want to show you guys. So the reason I'm going to show you this thing real quick is based on a hunch. So people will start loadout up, you know, they'll go into weapon crafting, and I feel like every noob does this because whenever I'm playing a match, I'll notice that players that are less than level 10 seem to always have flame rifles, and I'm just like, I bet I know why they're doing this. Now, when I was a new player, I remember seeing this myself. When you go in, you look at when you're making a gun, you know, whatever you want to name it, and you look at the damage of all the payloads and stuff, you'll notice that flame has the highest. Now, this isn't because when it impacts people it does the most damage. This is because it burns people over time. I feel like it needs a little thing next to it that says this is after burn damage, because people always, for some reason, think that it's just the best because it has the highest numbers. That's not the case, and really it's honestly not that good. The only reason I would ever use fire is when I'm trying to help my teammates get kills, because whenever someone's on fire, they take an additional 10% of damage from anything else. So what you really want to do is try to focus on making something else unless you really are trying to be an assisting type character with your fire rifle there. So I took a second look, and it actually does say underneath the pyro description that the damage is over time. And don't forget, if you roll, you can actually avoid most of that damage. So you end up really not putting out as much if you think that pyro does the most damage, because it in fact is one of the less damaging payloads. And one last thing I would suggest to new players is clicking that randomizer in the top right. Not a lot of people use this, but it could actually be helpful if you're a new player looking to make something new. Whew. Alright, finally, the gameplay. No more interruptions, no more nonsense, I promise. Okay. And of course, I'm using what I told you about at the very beginning of the video before I talked about all the fire rifle and all that stuff. I just really wanted to get that out there. That was one of the main things I wanted to hit on this video, one of the main points I wanted to discuss, because it's just insane to me how many new players are making those fire rifles. I really think that they honestly believe those are the best. And there's one thing I've been encouraging new players. One of my friends that just started playing, I've been telling him that what you should really do when you first start is just use the default loadout for probably your first 5 or 6 levels, honestly, unless you really get some help from somebody where they tell you specifically what to make and how much money you have, and they do a good management of your stuff. So I would really suggest using the default stuff because it's actually pretty good. The assault rifle and the grenade launcher are both pretty good weapons. I mean, they're actually pretty good mains if you upgrade them a little bit, just for the sake of doing it. And you keep grenades, or you can mess with that a little bit. One thing that I always did was I found players that killed me consistently, and I would just copy what they were doing for the longest time. I remember way back when I first started playing this game, I was just a copycat. Even now, I still do it. If I see something new that interests me, I'll just copycat it and see how it works. And it's really fun to do that because you get to explore other things that other players are doing. And you know, if you see a gun laying around on the field, it looks interesting, pick it up, try it out. Just try to look at it and see what it looks like it's made out of, see if it's got like maybe Gatling or a sniper barrel on it, and see what kind of payload it is, and just try it out for yourself. There's a shit ton of combinations in this game, and I wouldn't be surprised if new things arise all the time. And of course, if you're having trouble seeing what the player's using, you can just ask them. Most people will tell you what they're using. I don't really think there's too many people that'll be like, no, it's mine, you can't know what it is. If you ask me, I'll be glad to tell you. Ask me in the comments. From now on, I'm going to keep just putting in the video somewhere what I'm using. I might start putting it at the end of the video because I feel like it maybe detracts from the gameplay a little bit. I don't know. Whatever, you guys. So it's more of an option of if you want to watch and see what I'm using, because it doesn't necessarily matter too much. I think you'll actually see somebody ask me in this gameplay how to make that Tesla snipe. I'm telling you, man, it's pretty good. You just got to get used to using it. It's really fun too. It's rewarding because whenever there's a gun where you have to lead shots and you get the kill, it's just like, yeah, you know what I mean? So the next thing I'm going to talk about real quickly is the shield. The gun I told you about, the Tesla gun, at the beginning of the video I told you that it can kill people through shields, and that's because shields have a weakness to Tesla, because whenever they made the shield they were like, okay, we can't just make something where you take more damage without it having a weakness, so they made it weak against Tesla. I mean, that makes sense. The electricity, I guess, cancels out the electricity of the shield or something, whatever you want to think for that. So I notice a lot of new players, they get really frustrated with people that are using the shield because they don't really understand how it works. So the shield really doesn't protect too much against damage. You can break it pretty fast. I like to use it because there's some guns out there that do a high amount of damage, and I like to just kind of sponge the shot a little bit to give me a little bit of extra time to play. And because not all the time do I like trying to throw grenades and use sentries and stuff, sometimes I just like to have a shield. So I use the shield every once in a while, but it's really not as good as some people think it is or make it out to be. Always have a Tesla gun in one of your loadouts so that you can counter it in some way. And I would actually say, because I told you to try to stick with the default loadout for a while, I would say play in the noob playlist for some time, because the people in there aren't going to have the shield because it takes longer to unlock. So I would suggest really trying to get a Tesla gun early on for something to combat with. I believe if you buy one of the packs, you get a Tesla shotgun, and that gun's actually pretty good. I used to use that in one of my loadouts, but it's kind of been replaced by Tempestal's gun just because I really like the headshots with it. So I would say try to make a Tesla assault rifle or something early on. I would say that really should be one of the first weapons you make, is some sort of Tesla gun, so just in case you run across with anyone with a shield, you really have something to combat it with. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the Sentry. The Sentry is one of those things that it can be really good or really bad. It really depends on what weapon you put on it, where you put it, and what game type it is. In Blitz, they've been really effective if you put it in a place where people really can't get to it very quickly, because the easiest way to take out a Sentry is by meleeing it, and if it's really somewhere where people aren't able to melee it very quickly, let's say it's facing their spawn and it's not really close to them, they're going to really have a hard time getting to it. Sentries actually can't see through a disguise, so one of my methods of taking it out is just disguising and running over to it and smacking it. Two important things you should really note about a Sentry is that it'll drop down whatever gun you have out at the time. So let's say you have a healing rocket, you put down a Sentry, bam, it shoots healing rockets. It's whatever gun you have out at the time. It doesn't matter what's your primary or secondary, it's just whatever gun you're holding at that particular time when you drop it. Some guns are definitely better than others, and I would suggest whenever you put down a Sentry, try to have a long range scope on it, because the Sentry can shoot, its distance is based on the scope or whatever you put on it. So if you have iron sight weapon and you put down a Sentry, its range is going to be pretty short. If you put a long range, it can shoot pretty much across the entire map. Alright, so next I'll talk about jump boots. The jump boots are something that are very interesting. They can be used to help you capture better in Jackhammer, they can be used to get to higher ledges, or they can just be used with rockets to avoid damage, or they could just be used to make you have better mobility when fighting people. There's several players in game that when they use jump boots are just so hard to hit when they're jumping around and shit, and they'll use beam, and with that good combination they're hitting all their shots and they're making you miss a lot of yours. So jump boots don't necessarily have to be combined with rockets. A lot of new players think that that's almost a must, but it's really up to you, and I would say try them and experiment with them and see what you like. The next equipment piece I'll talk about real quick are the grenades. The best grenades I would say actually are the Tesla grenades. They're pretty good. The other grenades are okay. The flame grenades nobody really uses. The healing grenades are actually pretty bad. The buff grenades are probably the greatest because they fully buff people, and if you want to self-buff yourself to be a little stronger, faster, or maybe you're trying to cap something, buff grenades are actually pretty damn good. The rest of the equipment would be the health kits. The health kits are pretty good. I know a friend that pretty much only uses those. They're really good. They take a second for you to be able to use, because otherwise they'd be a little OP if you kind of just dropped them and instantly healed. So they do take a second for you to use, and once you drop them, they're anybody's game. Even enemies can take them, and you do get points when the enemies even use them. The equipment drops are pretty useless. I would say don't even bother with those. The fake equipment drops are kind of pointless. No one's really going to fall for that too often. The fake health kits, people die by those all the time. Those can be used to trick people or just booby the objective if you need to. And that pretty much covers all of the equipment. Once again, if you guys have any questions, leave them in the description. I don't think I've actually said that yet, but yes, if you do have any questions, just let me know. I'll try to keep doing this video series, maybe make a series out of it. I'm not entirely sure. I know that doing this, the game is definitely subject to change, and it's still in early beta, I would say. So anything I say could completely turn around at any time. I'm just really trying to help those guys that are jumping into the early access, and hopefully some of this stuff will still be viable later on, and I'll definitely keep things up to date with more videos. Alright, so the next thing I want to talk about is the game types. The main game type I would like to talk about for a second is Extraction. Extraction is one that, for some reason, new players are just, when they jump in, they're just like, what the hell's going on? So what you need to do is, it'll tell you when you're the collector. It'll say, you know, you're the collector, and what you're supposed to do is run around and pick up the plutonium. You press E to pick it up, and you run over and put it in the little bins. They're called, I should say, score or something over them once you pick up plutonium. You can drop plutonium. If it starts lighting up, that means it's going to explode. So you want to drop it by clicking E, or sorry, pressing E. And let's say there's someone running at you and you really don't have any other quick way to kill them. You can actually throw the plutonium at them. The way to do this is just clicking the mouse. For a long time, I forgot how to just throw it at people. And actually, it really turns into your primary weapon. So if you just look at someone and click the mouse, he just fucking lobs it at them, and it'll explode and kill them, hopefully. It does a lot of damage. And of course, when you're running around playing the objective, maybe you're trying to hunt down their collector, which, by the way, is important to do to try to slow them down. You can actually shoot the plutonium that's around the map and it will explode. It's sort of little ways to trap people, and it can be quite effective because it does a lot of damage. And this is something a lot of people get mixed up. When Rooster Teeth did the Let's Play, they didn't understand it. The collector is selected at random whenever your team's collector dies. So let's say you're the collector and you die, someone that's alive on your team will randomly be selected to be the next collector. Well, this appears to be mostly what I have time for. Once again, if you have any questions, leave them in the description. If you have any request videos, let me know. I've been playing a lot of Loadout lately, so that's going to be sort of a focus on my channel. Probably some more Counter-Strike stuff as well. You guys have a good day. Peace out.